If I could describe my childhood in one word, it was unsafe. By the age of 10, we had lived in every woman's refuge home. You can take the child out of the trauma, but it can take years to take the trauma out of the man. Forgiveness was for me. It was letting go of that mamai, that pain, because if I chose to hold on to this, it would then just poison my son and my wife and my children. I didn't want to be their father. More than anything that I've done, that me and my wife have created, I just hope that my children will say, Dad was a good man.
Hey, welcome to Parents We've Met, hosted by myself, Dana Galloway, parenting place presenter and mum to two, and Jenny Howe, parent coach, author, mum and grandma too. Welcome along. Hey, on this podcast, we love sharing in the magic and mess of parenting, but also we like to look back on how we were parented and our journey to becoming parents, with a common hope and goal to give our kids more to work with and less to work through. Now, today's guest is someone I've wanted to meet for a long time, so it's ticking two boxes really. He is a New Zealand-born Samoan and an author, communicator, an internationally acclaimed barber known for giving great cuts and inspiring great men. He's a survivor of family violence and childhood abuse and shares his story through his first book, She's Not Your Rehab, and speaking engagements, helping to foster vulnerability, healing, and connection. Welcome, Matt Brown.
Talofa, thank you for having me, ladies.
Thank you. I'm so glad that it's aligned because, this is our third season and your name has been on the list from beginning of season 1. So I'm really pleased to have you here hanging out with us.
It is. It's great to have you, Matt. Thank you. We always like to start these sessions with who's in your ainga, your family. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was born in Tamaki, South Auckland, Mangere to be exact, but currently raised and living in Ōtautahi in Christchurch. I am one of 9 siblings. My parents migrated from Samoa to New Zealand for a better life. And yeah, I've been honoured to adopt this beautiful whenua, this land and call it home. So massive mihi to tangata whenua who have gifted us, with open arms. And I'm married to the woman of my dreams, my best friend Sarah, who is Te Rarawa Ngāpuhi. And we have 3 beautiful children, 3 beautiful tamariki. Oceana, our oldest girl, who is 22. My son Angelo, who is turning 11 tomorrow. And our daughter, who is the boss of the family, the little one, little Miss Frida, who is 8 years old.
Wow, beautiful. And I do hear that it's Angelo's birthday tomorrow. How are you going to celebrate?
Well, we're not really a big tech family. So, screen time, all that stuff is not really encouraged in our house. The kids are allowed it on the weekends. And so when we asked our son, what does he want to do for his birthday? He wants to play PlayStation. So he's got his best friend coming over and treats, snacks galore, PlayStation. And then we're going to have a big family dinner out in the North Shore.
Beautiful.
Very cool. Do you guys go big on birthdays? Is it a bit of a tradition?
Yeah, we love celebrating birthdays, probably due to our own childhood memories. It was never really celebrated for me personally. My wife Sarah too, her own story of adoption plays a big part in her story and how she navigates this world. And so when it comes to birthdays, we spend all our effort and we're very intentional in celebrating our children, making sure that they are loved and cared for, and just, it's the one day that they were put on this earth, they were gifted to us, and so we just, why not celebrate it?
Yeah.
Why not love them? And so we're massive lovers of words as well. So every birthday we share how we feel towards that child, and every morning they wake up on their birthday just with the most beautiful celebrations that their mum has decorated the house with.
So cool.
Do you find that you and Sarah, almost like when they're celebrating them and they're, you see the joy, is it like almost like a little bit of healing for your own lack of not having those celebrations?
100%. I have the understanding that my parents, we didn't have much. We grew up, poor in the context of modern New Zealand society. We were, poor, mum and dad trying to provide for 9 tamariki is very hard, and so I am mindful of that. But we were never, birthdays were never a celebrated thing in our household. And I always tell my kids, like, my only birthday that mum could ever afford was I got to invite about 5 friends over, and what was on the table for lunch was chop suey, corned beef, taro, which I loved, but my friends all just stared at the place like, we have never seen this food ever, you know, and this is Christchurch, you know. And so my kids are always like, oh, you know, we tell our kids these stories just so they have an understanding of where mum and dad came from. You know, the reason why we love to celebrate them is because we want them to feel seen, loved, acknowledged. Because it was hard when you're going to school in Aotearoa and you're hearing your friends be celebrated, you know, you would obviously compare like, oh, how come my family don't celebrate birthdays? And so, yeah.
I love that you get a chance for healing through your own kids as you walk them through things that you would have loved to have had done for you when you were growing up. Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, I don't want to assume that everyone knows your story, and obviously you've said, you know, you're born in Auckland, raised in Christchurch, one of 9 siblings, parents from Samoa. You didn't have a lot. What did it feel like to be part of your family and your childhood? And it's such a big thing, so I know that could be a whole podcast just on that. But just so people get an idea of where you've come from. And
like I said, we didn't have much growing up. I love parts of my childhood, especially hanging out with my siblings, my brothers in particular. But there were more sad memories than there were happy ones. And so I wrote in our book, if I could describe my childhood in one word, it was unsafe. It was unsafe in the whole meaning of the word. By the age of 10, we had lived in every woman's refuge home in Christchurch. I still remember at the age of 10 when Once We're Warriors, the film came out. My siblings and I, we laughed at that film. And when I say that, you know, and that's been shared far and wide now, a lot of people struggle to find that movie humorous. But I think when you're a child trying to survive and make sense of your environment, like that's all I knew. And so I think I knew from an early age that my experience of family, of home and love was not normal, you know, but it felt normal to me. And so when that film came out, like the reason why we found it humorous and almost like a comedy was because we would compare Bethike's black eyes to mum's black eyes, because my mum would go to church like that. Bruised face, black eyes with the big shades of glasses trying to hide her black eyes, but no one ever said anything.
Given what you've been through, Matt, you know, you could have probably hardened up and shut down and done all sorts of things like that, but that isn't who you are. How did you lean into some softness and tenderness and whatever you've leaned into? How did that all happen?
Oh, therapy. I mean, yes, but no, I wasn't always soft. But hard for me is not your traditional hard where, you know, you harden up, get over it. Now I'm just reactive. My harden up came from layers of bricks, building these walls, which then shut me down, hide so no one could hurt me again. So in that way, I see that as hardening up. But then I learned that this was not serving my life. That I had to find another way to live because suicide was real. I struggled and fought with that thought ideology right throughout my high school years, my teen years. And so in order to change that and break that cycle, I reached out for help. Social workers, my music teacher I mentioned earlier, and people just started showing up for me. Like, yes, a lot of my hurt and pain came from relationships, my immediate family, but so too did my healing. So the right people came into my life that created the safety in order for me to connect with them, soften this boy. And I try and mimic that, to live and model that to every man that I ever encounter. You know, and this is courageous work. You know, being soft, being vulnerable and sharing your feelings is hard, especially when you grow up in an environment where you're just trying to survive, you know.
Must have been a lot of learning and growing and heartache and showing up again.
Yeah, showing up is that's if I want my kids to ever remember me for something, is that dad always showed up. And even my close friends, that I was a friend, a brother who always showed up. But that looked like me showing up for myself first. And that looked like a lot of tears, a lot of therapy, talk therapy, somatic therapy, you know, just sitting with myself and all the mama and the pain that I'd experienced, and just come to the awareness with the help of, you know, the right people teaching me that that was never mine to carry. My trauma is not my identity. And I say it in the book, you know, you can take the child out of the trauma, but it can take years to take the trauma out of the man.
Yeah.
We've heard it that your mantra has been seek to understand rather than to be understood. Can you unpack that for us?
It changed my whole life, I think, when I came across those words. I think I came across it in the writings of, what's his name? Father Richard Roha. When I came across that line. But I don't think it's his line, but seeking to understand rather than to be understood.
Might have been Francis of Assisi.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. But I think I read it through Father Richard Roha. It changed my life in a way I work with people, but even applying it to myself. You know, everyone has a story, and I think if you live your life by just being aware of how people react, how people speak, how people carry themselves, and try and understand that, it can really shift your mindset to be of service to our communities, especially for me, to the men that I was serving. I really wanted to understand them, and I was curious, wanted to know why they said certain things or acted a certain way or perpetrated harm. Why? What happened to you for you to go down this path? And so I think if our leaders in our society, our politicians took on, you know, we would see a different society.
Yeah, we would.
When you think of your parents now and that whole idea of trying to understand, you know, what has that opened up for you looking back at them now and on reflection?
It was the realization that my dad wasn't just an angry man, he was a hurt boy. And I think when I choose to see my father through that lens, it in no way condones the violence that we were subjected to, in no way condones what we witnessed and experienced, especially my dear mother, but it gives me understanding to liberate me in a way, you know, like here is this grown man who says he loves and adores his family, yet is hurting them. Does he really hate us, or is he just so trapped in this little boy who has been damaged himself, abused himself, that he is now, you know, transmitting this pain onto us, the people he says he loves? And so taking that whakaaro and believing that my father and seeing him as this hurt little boy changed everything for me. It made me understand him. It made me understand the men I work with better. And so, I continue to see my father through that lens. And when I do, I have compassion for him. You know, I'm not at his house every day, you know, but if I'm at home, I'll go see him, give him his favourite kai, spend an hour or so with him and my kids, his moko, and he's a completely better grandfather than he ever was a father. But it's just the understanding of, again, I ask those questions, what happened to you, Dad? You know, and I came to learn many things that happened to my father. You know, the abuse that he endured in the islands, to then come to New Zealand, Aotearoa in the 60s, work, not knowing how to speak the language, live through the dawn raids, like all these things, face racism, like he would have had to shut down himself, you know, and so he was living in survival. And so when I take all that, when I see the whole picture, it's he's not just the monster that was violent and abusive, he's also this hurt little boy, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
You're so right, it would change society if we changed our lens and looked at people that way. You've talked about forgiveness being a real and an important part of your life. How did that come about? How did you navigate that one?
Well, I first and foremost hated the version of forgiveness that I heard in church, especially from the pulpit. especially from other family members when I came out and talked about my story. I've been talking about my story since I was 15 years old. I stood in front of my peers at high school and did my 3-minute English speech on family violence.
Wow.
And that was the first time I ever disclosed publicly of how my father was. You know, I've always had pushback. I'm no stranger to conflict within my community, the Pacific community, because again, we've been conditioned, and I'm not generalizing, but a lot of us, my homies growing up, my island boys, we were all conditioned to never speak ill of your parents. You know, how dare you? If you do, you're dishonoring them. And then you obviously the scriptures were used to, you know, back that up. Yeah. I hated the term forgiveness because every time I heard it from the pulpit, it felt like I had to do all the work, but the people who had perpetrated violence, and not just my father, family members, cousins, uncles, were walking around free. You know, sexual abuse was prevalent in my household, never at the hands of my father, but other family members. I was like, why do I have to forgive these guys and they're not being held responsible? Until I had my son, until I became a pāpā to my boy, this little thing came out of his mama, and it was love at first sight. And as I held this little boy in my arms, I thought to myself, why would anyone want to hurt something so precious, so innocent? So it was my invitation to forgive. And so forgiveness to me looked like letting go. Forgiveness was for me. It was letting go of that mamai, that pain, because if I chose to hold on to this, it would then just poison my son and my wife and my children. I didn't want to be their father.
Yeah.
And so forgiveness looks like to me is letting go. It doesn't condone what happened, but it releases me to be the father I never had.
I remember thinking I was a real noticer, like, maybe I'd be a good detective. And it was just listening to a podcast this year that I realized that actually me noticing was a trauma response. So I always know where the exits are. I can tell from across the room if someone's angry, sad, if the smile is real. And so it's been really interesting looking at that and going, oh, wow, like I kind of like I can use it now, and it can be really good. But I also go, oh, that's so sad that that's where it's come from. And it was part of, as a little girl, trying to feel safe and just being able to really read a situation. In your day today, you've done so much healing, but do you see, because of that trauma response, little things in your everyday? Yeah,
100%. And like I said before, the trauma never, you can heal it, but it's part of your story, it's in your nervous system. The body keeps the score. And just like you read rooms, you read the energy, you read body language before even, you notice what people are like before they even say a thing, before they even say a word. And I've obviously, like you, have used that to my advantage, of reading the room, being mindful of my own energy. It's definitely, I'm still healing. I believe healing is a journey, not a destination. And, my kids are my greatest invitation to do their work, You think you've overcome one obstacle, then something else pops up, They
get their little fingers.
And so I think, to even tie it back to the question of forgiveness, it's a daily practice, I don't believe in, because you're going to get triggered. Things will come up for you. We're human. We're not perfect. We're imperfect parents trying to navigate the hardest job in the world, the most rewarding job in the world, but the most honoured, precious job. And so for me, the practice looks like every day.
Yeah.
Not overwhelming myself, but just doing little increments. I forgive you today. I forgive you tomorrow. And some days are easier than others.
Yeah.
I love the mention of the invitation that parenting gives you to kind of refresh the page or acknowledge something or do something. Kids are amazing and we're very motivated. I think kids are such a high motivator. Your work kicked off really creating conversations around the barber chair. Tell us a bit about that. How did men start dropping off their armour and talking?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a cheap therapist. A haircut, and that's all I did was cut hair. I'm staring at the back of men's hair, the side of men's head, majority of the time. But it's the familiarity, the barbershop is a masculine space where you're coming in to look good. Like, there's not many places, people that you trust with your outer appearance. And so the honor of us as barbers is we get to, help men look good, feel good. And in return, we may just hear their stories. And I think listening has been a massive part of my mahi, my work. Just the honor of these men have never shared some of these things that they want to share. But in order to get men to that place, they have to feel safe first. And I always try and when I work with Tāne, with men, I always try and picture them and envision I'm working with little boys. And if we're working with children, the first thing we always want to create is safety first. Before connection, safety has to come first. And then I know for myself, in order for me to feel safe, I have to trust the person. The person has to give themselves before I give myself, especially when you come from trauma and an abusive home. Why should I trust you with my story if you're not willing to give yourself to the space? So, safety first.
You and Sarah were friends for a long time before anything, romantically kicked off. I'm wondering, in a world full of loud voices about dominance, entitlement, and control, how do you help young men build relationships that are healthy, kind, and equal?
Great question. I would first, it's not to sound cheesy, but treat others like you'd like to be treated. Me and Sarah, our starting point was, she was already an ambitious woman, I seen her as my equal. I didn't see myself better than. Like, she was already an independent woman, had our daughter Oceana, our oldest girl, successful at her career, motivated. And so for me, just admiring the person that you're wanting to be in a relationship with is massive. I admired my wife. I loved that she was a strong, independent, thoughtful woman. She had her own dreams and aspirations, and I just wanted to be a part of that. Like, I had my own dreams and aspirations, but I thought if we came together, we were best friends first, as you mentioned, for 4 years. I just couldn't see my life without this woman, and so I would always encourage people, admire the person that you want to, do your life with. I think it's, and from that starting point, it's been beautiful for us,
Once you and Sarah got together, were you nervous about becoming a father to her girl that became your girl, and also, expanding that? Just for thinking what you had witnessed, and also just thinking, well, it's on me to break the cycle.
100%. I was nervous as hell. That, like, what if I become my father? What if, I am triggered or I lose the plot? All those fears, and I think all those, that's normal. That shows that I was human, especially coming from a real lived place of, of experiencing that life. But I'm honoured that I've had good men to lean on, and that helped being a barber. So I asked questions to seasoned fathers, older men, wiser men who had been fathers 10, 20 years longer than I have, and just lean on their advice. But then also drawing from my experience, what feels unsafe, do different, act completely different. And so if I had any chance of becoming this father that I had never experienced, witnessed, or seen, I had to do completely different. And that started with not raising a hand at my children, not being violent, educating myself, pick up books, read and learn from other men. And I'm still on that journey. I'm proud I haven't, laid a hand and, carry that cycle. I've broken that cycle.
Yeah, you have. Your understanding of what it means to be a man has changed a lot over the years. What does it mean to you now to be a man?
To be a man to me now means taking responsibility for your actions. Yes, your childhood trauma may not have been your fault, it isn't your fault, especially when you're a child, but your healing is absolutely your responsibility. Being a man looks like being courageous, and I think the most courageous thing we can do as human, but as a man, is own your story in its entirety. You know, it's all right to be tender. It's all right to be soft. These things are hard, especially when you've grown up in a generation or a home where being soft wasn't celebrated. You know, it's all right to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. Because I have learned firsthand, talking to men for over 2 decades now, as a barber, shutting it down does not go. It doesn't disappear. It comes out somewhere else. Often it comes out through violence, colourful language, addiction, all these things. And so I think being a man is just owning it, sitting with your feelings. You have permission to feel. Because I think, and society, you know, society has a lot to own for that, teaching, conditioning boys to not feel. I think being a man is giving yourself permission to feel.
How do you find fatherhood now? What surprised you about it?
That my children are my teachers. I thought being a parent that this was my job, and that's why I got all the books out that I could read and asking guys questions, that I was going to be this teacher. Then learning very quickly that my children were the biggest teachers. It's the most rewarding thing, I think, more than public speaking, more than writing books, more than doing all the things that we're doing, creating, you know, accessible resources for our community. Being a father is my greatest honor. Yeah, I love it. It's the best job in the world. I don't see it as a job, but, you know, it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, the best gig.
Yeah.
You and Sarah have written a children's book together, This Is Not Yours to Carry, which I love that title. This was inspired by your own childhood, thinking about what you would have liked to have heard maybe in the thick of it. How was the process of putting this together?
It was emotional. It was different from writing She's Not Your Rehab. I think it was more emotional, and I cried more on this book because I was writing to little Matt. You know, we were writing to little Matts, little Sarahs, the little version of us, kids who are still today in those homes suffering silently. And so when my wife asked me, you know, what's one thing that you wish someone said to you while you were going through Women's Refuge Home, you know, all the time, was, without a split second, I said, I wish someone said to me, this is not yours to carry. Because we really believed that keeping mum happy, making sure dad was happy so he didn't abuse mum, was our job, that all of it was our responsibility. And so we wrote this book, this children's puka for kids who don't have anyone, you know, and we wanted to give language to children who are currently living in those homes. Because sometimes speaking to an adult, and I've seen this over time and time again, when children disclose to someone that they may feel is safe, and then it doesn't turn out to be a safe response, they shut down even more, you know. And so I wanted it to be a gentle invitation for kids to find language around what they're experiencing, that they then may just tell someone, feel safe enough to tell someone.
And you've been distributing this book throughout New Zealand?
Yes, throughout New Zealand, Australia, in the UK. My dream is to get 125,000 copies out. We've so far donated 40,000. And so, I mean, people believe in the kaupapa, donate. And so we just gift it to whatever organisation works with children that we can.
And your first book, She's Not Your Rehab, that went through jails all around New Zealand as well, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah, and my dream in writing the book, we signed with Penguin Publishing House. I really wanted it to be gifted it for free to every man incarcerated and woman incarcerated, because I was a kid always, every time my dad did a long leg in prison for family violence, for beating up mum, I was always hoping and praying that someone would say something to my old man while he was incarcerated. This is the perfect time. He's sober. Unfortunately, that never happened. You know, my dad came out, learned how to be more abusive. You know, prison is the biggest collection of people with ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, you know. So you learn how to hide more. You learn how to be more abusive, all these things. How I wish someone talked to my dad, sat him down, helped him with his trauma. So when he came out, he was better for us kids.
Yeah. Wow.
A lot of men want connection but don't know where to start, or feel awkward even naming that need. From what you've seen, what's a realistic first step for guys who want community but don't yet have it?
Start small. Start embarrassingly small. What that looks like is just, it could look like you just naming your feelings, giving your feelings a name. When you lash out, or you're at home, express what those feelings are. Why are you feeling frustrated? It's not mum, your wife, or the kid's fault. For whatever reason, you've now just, the reaction is bigger than what actually happened. Name those feelings, what you're feeling. Start small. Talk to someone. Before, I'm not saying go to a men's group. And there's many now in our society in Aotearoa. I know many barbershops who hold men's group therapy sessions in their barbershop, many workspaces, but start small. Talk to someone. Talk about those feelings. Start very, very small.
What gets in the way most? Fear, pride, not knowing how, or not wanting to be a burden?
All of the above. I mean, fear, you can overcome that. You can talk your way out of it. You can, find solutions. Burden, I feel burden is love in disguise. We don't want to put that on the people that we love. So you're thinking that this is an act of love, but then you're being to yourself. Out of those, I would probably say pride. Because pride tells you that you can do this alone. Pride tells you that you don't need anyone. Harden up, get over it. The unfortunate truth is it ends up coming out, like I said, in other places. And so, I think that gets in the way. All of that gets in the way.
Yeah.
For people listening who love a man who's closed off, maybe a partner, brother, son, a mate, what helps and what actually pushes them further away?
Consistency. I think showing up consistently. When we ask our boys to be vulnerable, what does that look like without then judging them and critiquing them? I have learned as a barber, when I model vulnerability to the men who sit in my chair, sometimes having the answer or response is the best response. It's just holding the space and saying simply, I see you. I'm so sorry you've gone through this. I may not know the answer, but I'm here with you to walk alongside you, get the help that we need. I think, and that's how you create safety. In order to connect with people, they have to feel safe first. And so,
Because sometimes I was talking to my husband the other day and saying, like, sometimes guys, my husband's pretty good at connecting and building that, which I really admire. But sometimes they text and check on each other. And sometimes I'm like, I feel like you just need to go over, but it's almost like they wait for that invitation. I mean, just sometimes you just have to go and knock on the door, because I just feel like there's such a need in our society for connection and for men showing up for each other. And sometimes they just don't seem to ask for help, and that your mate's not in a good place, but you don't want to intrude.
Yeah. I think the thing is, and all of us want to be seen. All of us want to, feel loved. Like, we all feel that. That's at the deepest level. Every man that I've ever met wants to feel loved at the deepest level. And I think if you take that on, knowing that your homies, your friends want to feel loved, just do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? He's like, oh, I don't want, he's like, why are you doing this? Like, okay, sweet. Make friends with the no, be uncomfortable. It is what it is. But at least you know that you have tried. And I always say to myself, well, doing what I'm doing is not working, so I'm going to do something completely different. I'm going to show up to your house. I'm going to take you out for lunch. I'm not just going to check on you. Like, hey, bro, you want to go for breakfast? Like, no, I'm coming over to your house. I'm picking you up for breakfast. Let's go.
Yeah.
Just do something completely different. And if you get a no, or, they're so rude, like, okay, I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah.
But I think so many of us are so, we have not made friends with disappointment. And I think just making friends, my genuine intention was just to make sure that you're all right. And I think you can't knock that. If your boys are coming from a place of their intention is they just really care, then
Yeah.
I'm not going to be angry at you forever.
If we don't want our boys to grow up emotionally shut down or disconnected, anything you want to add to how do we model now? What do we do to keep that door open where they feel like they can be vulnerable and have soft hearts?
I mean, you use the right word, model it. Modeling looks like keeping that space open. I think when I'm talking to young boys and even teenagers, it's just the invitation that the door's open. I'm not going to force you through this door, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. And then not filling the space, the silence with noise. Like, sit with the silence. It's all right. If I'm driving with my teenage girl, sometimes I will turn the music off. I'm not going to fill the silence with words. Like, I'm just going to sit there, hum away. And most of the time she'll just start talking. And I take her lead in it, Even with my son's a yabber, so he loves to talk. If anything, it's the opposite. I'm like, hey, it's enough now. Can we play some music so I can, but it's there. The invitation, the door's open. My kids are allowed to walk in it whenever. And so, but you have to model that. You really have to model that. And so, what does safety look like?
I saw you've created an app, Inner Boy, an invitation to change the narrative of your life. Can you tell us a bit about that initiative?
It's just our mahi, our book, in a digitized form. That started during COVID when I jumped on national news with our Women's Refuge CEO, Dr. Jerry, and I said on 6 o'clock news, if there's any man out there struggling with his mental health or anger, please reach out to me. I promise I'll respond. And then we were so inundated with so many messages. I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning most nights during our first lockdown, just writing back to men all around this country, and then receiving so many messages from kids. And when this 12-year-old boy, whom I'll never forget, said, hey, I seen you on news last night. You said that you help men who struggle with anger. Can you please help me help my dad who's abusing my little brother? My heart just broke. More messages from kids. I was like, oh. And obviously due to COVID, none of us could meet in person. There was no group sessions available. And so we just decided to create this app. So that's where Inner Boy was created. All the research before we created this app was in our community, talking to men in the barbershop, what works, what doesn't work, what would you want to hear, what would you not want to see, on this app. And men were just up front, like, I don't want to see your PhD, I don't want to see your piece of paper, I want to hear your story. Speak to our heart, not up here. Like, we have enough of that. If I want to access all, that information, I can go search it up, I can Google it. But if you're going to create this app, speak to our heart. And so, it's our gift to the world. I wanted to really make it accessible. 30 minutes for 30 days. Men can sit on this app and just learn emotional literacy. And so we've been lucky that it's been researched by a beautiful organisation called Iwi Research, and they found that a lot of the men were using it in the toilet. So my wife's like, did you ever think that you'll be helping men heal on the toilet? I was like, better looking at that than other things. But it's been such a beautiful app that we've created, which is now in Australia too. And so
Great.
It's been amazing.
Both Sarah and yourself became members of the New Zealand Order of Merit in 2022 and were awarded a Commonwealth Points of Light Award by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as head of the Commonwealth before she passed. What did the recognition mean to you both, especially the recognition of the importance of the work you're both doing?
No one's ever asked me this question. Honestly, for me personally, nothing. Because I never set out to get recognised for this mahi. I just genuinely cared about the men in my community. And in the men in my community, like the monarchy, that whole world is completely, like not even in our map of thought, train of thought. So to me, it didn't mean anything. But knowing that our mahi, knowing that my wife has given her all into this mahi. Like, my wife is the backbone of this work. She's my safe space. I think of who holds space for those who hold space for other people, my wife is that person. And so to see her, and it doesn't mean, and I think she probably feels the same, like it doesn't mean anything to her, but for me to see her be recognized, proud husband, to think of the men who have gifted me their stories for many years, their pain being recognized, that means something to me. And so it's an honor to be welcome into these spaces. And I suppose, the gift of that, those awards is getting this brown man into spaces that I would never ever picture myself sitting at tables that I never thought, I'm invited here. But at being invited there, I can then bring my community and share. And so, multiple things can be true at once, It doesn't mean anything, but then it's also, an honor for my community.
Yeah. But one day your work on this earth will be done. What change do you hope to have created, and how do you hope your kids will remember you?
I hope that one man felt seen enough that he didn't want to end it. I hope that one child feels safe enough to wake up the next morning. I hope that one man is taught it's all right to breathe, to regulate myself and not lash out on my wife and my children. But most importantly, I hope my children always remember Dad for showing up. Like, more than anything that I've done, that me and my wife have created, I just hope that my children will say, Dad was a good man. And I share that, and I get emotional thinking about it, because we had, my little brother got married a couple of years ago. And my oldest brother, my family are very deep. So whenever we're together, we have beautiful kōrero, talanoa. And we're sitting there with all the grandchildren, and my oldest brother asked a question to everyone in the room, what's your definition of a good man? And everyone was saying their definition of a good man. It came to my son, who was 9 years old at the time. And Angelo said, my dad. And that meant the world to me. So that was evidence for me that I had broken that cycle. I think because I would never ever think that of my old man. I love my dad. I understand why he behaved the way he behaved, but I would never define him as a good man. I would know that my dad did the best he did with what he knew, knowing his story. But to hear my son say those words was healing. You got me with that question.
Well, I just want to say thank you for showing up for so many people. I think you've created such a safe place, and so appreciate what you've shared today. And I'm thinking of people that are listening. Oh, look at you, you've got rid of the more that we've sat here. I can see that you've been feeling the feels. But I've been thinking about all the people that are watching and listening to this conversation, and almost imagining them as little boys and little girls, and some stuff would have been brought up for them. And I feel like you're someone who replies to people, and you have such a heart, and what you say is what you do. But where can they find out more, or if they're just feeling like they just need to be heard? I mean, what would you recommend?
I mean, we have so much access to resources, and how what you guys are doing here. I've always been a massive fan. You guys have been amazing. This organization has been amazing on my own journey as a father, learning things from your resources and authors, etc. There's help out there. I mean, if you want to see our content, it's all online, social media. She Is Not Your Rehab or My Father's Barbers. Our books are out there. You can find them in the bookstores. But yeah, just message. But there is help out there. I honestly believe there's more people out there who want to help than there are people who don't. It's just us finding not being whakamā, but having the courage to really ask for help. It is really out there. And I encourage you, it was scary for me to ask for help, but I did, and yes, some people were disappointed, some people didn't end up being who I thought they were, and my heart shut down. But then I thought, I have seen firsthand what shutting down does. I've seen what it does to our men. We take our lives, we end up hurting people that we say we love, we end up incarcerated. So I just knew lean into the discomfort of asking for help. And I still, like, I'm a grown-ass man. I have all the access to so many beautiful women and men who freely give me advice, and I still ask for help today, you know. So.
Well, I hope if you've been watching or listening, do ask for help. And on the show notes, I'll put a whole bunch of different places that you can reach out and get help. And also, we are here, parentingplace.nz. We want parents to feel confident so kids feel deeply loved. And a child that feels deeply loved is a child that feels safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.